This week on The Futurists, Shelly Palmer.
This is not a technical problem. There is no technical issue with AI. It's going to evolve as it evolves. This is a leadership challenge. It is not a technical challenge. And the deep state, the middle management mafia, hates this.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to The Futurist. I'm Rob Tercek, and this week I'm excited to bring a guest on who's been on the show several times. And when it turns out that there's a really gnarly challenge, something complicated, too hard for me to understand, that lies in the very near future, there's a person I go to, I rely on heavily for insight. I read his frequent blog posts. I follow him on social media, and I get a lot of insight from him. I'm not the only person who does this, by the way. It turns out that CNN and many other news publications and news television networks rely on Shelly Palmer for his expert advice. And of course, he's also a professor. He is the professor of advanced media in residence at Syracuse University's S.I. Newhouse School of Public Communications. And he's the CEO of the Palmer Group, where he provides this level of expertise and advice to Fortune 500 companies, particularly focused on technology and media trends. Shelley, welcome back to The Futurist. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
The last time you were on the show, we sprung kind of a question on you that we didn't really give you much prep for, which is about quantum computing. And you gave us a very eloquent and concise explanation of quantum and some of the near-term implications and possibilities there. So I recommend that to folks because that was one of my favorite episodes in the recent past. But lately, there's been something else on my mind. And I got to tell you, the flood of information about artificial intelligence has sort of captured, the public attention. But what I'm finding is there's a lot of knee-jerk resistance to it. And it kind of reminds me of the way the traditional media covered the internet in the 1990s, where they viewed it as all threat and no opportunity. And so if you're only relying on traditional media to learn about AI right now, you might be subject to something similar where artificial intelligence is presented as this sort of doom and gloom scenario. And those scenarios have some credibility. They're certainly worth contemplating. They make for interesting conversation at cocktail parties. I'm just not sure how relevant they are to anybody with a career in the near term. In the year 2025, there are some near-term things we need to consider, I think, quite urgently, but typically those aren't covered in the media when the topic is artificial intelligence. And Shelly, just by way of getting the show started, let me offer a couple of stories that I think we can bypass this week. The first one is artificial general intelligence. This is a topic that keeps coming up on this show. We hear about it all the time. Very often, to me, it's a hand wave where people say, like, well, in the future, you're going to have a machine that's super intelligent, and therefore it's going to displace everybody and do all the thinking for us. And there's so many conditions required for that to actually become true. First off, we don't have a definition of intelligence. Secondly, it's not entirely clear there is a path to general intelligence. So it might happen, but it's not something you or I can do anything about today. And similarly, there's lately a trend of speculation about whether or not we're in an AI bubble. And that's certainly a very valid question to ask. It's in the news all the time. You see different perspectives. Just today, I read a thing from Azim Azhar, who's very smart, and he did a financial model and forecasted that, no, in fact, there's no evidence yet that it's a bubble. The point here is that's another doom scenario, right? Everybody's worried that's another financial crisis potential, like, say, the 2008 financial meltdown. Then there's a third issue, which actually I think is a lot more relevant in the near term, which is whether or not companies are finding any profitable application for LLMs. And this topic has come up recently as well, particularly in the context of OpenAI. Now, OpenAI just announced they've got 1 million customers for their pro model or for their corporate model. So I think they have a fairly good rebuttal to that. But the question there is, as these companies massively invest in infrastructure, is there going to be supporting revenue there to offset that expense or that investment? Here's the thing. All of these stories are speculation. And so we're not going to get the answer to that anytime soon. But there is one area that you've been writing about, Shelly, that I'm so interested in that's happening right now. Tests are happening today. Companies are actively working on this. People are building right now. And there's advances being made. We've been hearing about it quite a lot. Typically, it's called the agentic web. And this is the idea that when artificial intelligence achieves a level of reliability, that we can actually relinquish some of the control, maybe even give it permission to shop and do purchases on our behalf or make other binding commitments on our behalf. So, Shelly, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for letting me do that long wind-up. I wanted to ask you about the agentic web. So can you start by telling us a little bit about your understanding of the agentic web? What's an agent and how do they work?
So thank you for that. I think the most important thing we can do, everyone can do before you have any discussions about AI, is define your terms. If I say I want to search the web, you kind of know what I mean. If I say I want to Google something, up until earlier this year, you knew you were going to get 10 blue links and you had a really good mental model about it. Hey, let's Google it. And you knew what it meant. There are no words like that in AI. Everything needs to be defined. So you sit in a conversation, you're talking about an agent, they're talking about agentic, they're talking like everyone has a different definition. So for us today, an agent is a thing that does a thing. It's that simple. It goes and it searches the web. It looks in a database. It finds out what the weather report's going to be for tomorrow. A thing that does a thing, one thing, reads an email, summarizes an email, a thing that does a thing, as opposed to an agentic system, which is a group of agents you will orchestrate together to accomplish a goal. Now, that may not be the real definitions, and it may not survive this podcast. But for you and me, Rob, we're going to just say an agent is a thing that does a thing. An agentic system is an orchestrated group of agents that accomplish a goal. If all of AI innovation stopped today, dead, like just stopped, we're still 5 years away from realizing the productivity gains of the last two sentences for every big business that you and I work with. It's so powerful and so underutilized right now. When people say there's a bubble, it's like there may be a financial bubble. It's possible. I'm not a financial expert. I don't give financial advice. Did Wall Street get overzealous? There's a couple $1 trillion lined up behind this, so somebody's overzealous. Do they need a couple $1 trillion? Apparently they do. Apparently they need 3 trillion because that's what's earmarked. Is that a bubble? I'm not the guy to ask. What I am the guy to ask about is what would you do with a few agents if you had them? And if you could orchestrate them into agentic systems, what would those systems do? And what level of value would be created? So we can lose all the jargon right now and just call this super automation. What workflow or process could you super automate? Meaning it just happens by itself. And is it possible? Well, humans have been in the loop everywhere for a very long time. An agent is, some agents, depending on who wrote them, are good by themselves. Hey, agent, go do this. Oh, good, agent. And you give it a biscuit. Like, read the email. You definitely are going to get, if Google writes a Gmail reading agent, you use Google's Gmail reading agent, it reads an email. The summarizing agent, this Gemini 2.5 Pro powered, gives a pretty decent summary of an email.
Yeah, you see that in Google search already quite naturally, and it seems to work pretty well.
It seems to work. Copilot is terrible, but when it's connected to Outlook and your calendar, and you say what happened in the meeting in a Teams meeting, if you've got appropriate permissions set and SecOps doesn't have you shut down and IT doesn't have you shut down so that's like this big, if they actually have a decent install of Copilot, it does a good job summarizing what you just did in Teams into an email with action items as an after action email or a thank you note. So we are at a point now where if everything stopped, to integrate this into the workflow and processes of all of the departments enterprise-wide, because of the bureaucracy, because of the inertia of the machine, because of the thinking from the truly past decade, where, okay, I'm going to mung all my data and get it perfect, and I'm going to have everything structured in, SQL style databases, and then my Postgres databases, and my graph databases, and then I'm going to have my relational stuff and my flat file stuff and my unstructured stuff, and it's all going to be stop. We're in a new world. AI does a couple of things really well, and a couple of things we don't know yet because it's not been trained well enough and we don't know what's going to happen. The shorter answer to this, Rob, is that we are at a point now, and the way to think about it is really simple. You are sitting in a self-driving car, and you are the driver, and it is the self-driving car, and it's in learn mode. And you're going to drive all over town, and it's going to watch you drive. It's going to learn what you do. And sometime next week, after driving 2,000 miles, you're going to let it drive for a minute on its own in certain controlled circumstances that you are watching with your hands poised over the wheel.
Like teaching your kid how to drive a car.
Pretty much. And so over time, and I'm going to call this less than 5 years and maybe more than 2, so somewhere from 2 to 5 years out, our roles as trainer and hall monitor of every agent and every nascent small agentic system is going to go from trainer to supervisor. At some point, when you've trained the self-driving car well enough, you tell it where to go and you don't do anything else. It executes. So we will get to a point where agents, which and many of them can execute pretty well right now, flawlessly, no, but pretty well, better than a human. They don't take coffee breaks. They tend to make the same mistakes over and over if they make mistakes, and you can train them out of it if you're paying attention. Fully agentic systems, I don't have anybody running full perfect agentic systems in any of my corporations, but I've got a lot of people running 3 agents put together being watched, 5 agents put together being watched, and then, 2 agents get added and they watch it for a little while. Now they have 7 agents working together into a small agentic workflow. And you can see this thing just in the successful companies where the leadership cares about it and the leaders truly believe. Now, you said something really important in your intro we cannot get past. You see articles every week about doom and gloom and ROI and people not using it. This is not a technical problem. There is no technical issue with AI. It's going to evolve as it evolves. This is a leadership challenge. It is not a technical challenge. And the deep state, the middle management mafia, hates this. And I don't mean a little bit. You cannot get somebody to do 3 years worth of work in 1 year and not compensate them. They will fold their hands and quiet quit. They won't say it out loud because they don't want to be the Luddite that's anti-AI, but magically you have 13,000 Copilot licenses and 800 people are using Copilot. Why? They're not trained.
Yep.
When they are trained, they're superficially trained. They don't have Tech Tuesdays. There's no reward structure for being great at it. No one's innovating workflow and process. They're simply slapping productivity onto old-fashioned workflows and processes that are in place unless leadership honestly leads the rank and file workers, the workforce, the teams to innovate the workflow and process to get to learn this, unless you pay people to learn this. Hey guys, it's Tech Tuesdays. We're going to spend an hour Tuesday morning. Whoever writes the best app or gets the best agent put together that does this particular thing, you're getting a Starbucks card. You're getting to go home, at 10 o'clock Friday morning, as opposed to having to spend the whole, whatever the reward structure is. And if you don't do that, Rob, it ain't going to happen.
Let me respond to that because I think it's a really important point. So I'm thinking about our audience right now. Some of the folks in our audience are leaders of businesses or leaders of departments and companies. Everybody who listens to this podcast is interested in the future, of course, and they all have ambition about how to proceed. Now, one other thing I've noticed about the current generation of LLMs is they're extremely good at synthesizing information and making it concise. There are people who have that job inside of a lot of companies. Many large companies have a middle management layer, like you mentioned a moment ago, whose job is to kind of like pay attention to what one department is doing and then reformat a kind of report about that group, a status report, and send it to another group in the format that they need. And to me, this is a task that is literally earmarked for obsolescence. AI is going to it's not just going to replace it. It's going to happen in real time without that layer of people. But, Shelly, what I found is companies have a very difficult time observing their own process. And what I mean by that is people are busy doing the process. They're doing the job they're paid to do, but they don't ever step back and say, like, well, can I optimize what I'm doing? Can I change what I'm doing? For the last couple of decades, operations management has been about cost cutting, largely. Streamlining operations, and nowadays, lately, laying people off. But operations has a new challenge here, which is that they have to observe the process and then imagine, this is a hard thing to do, imagine where AI can be usefully applied, not to replace people, but to get much more out of the people and to get much more out of their heads. And I think this is quite a big challenge. And this is a senior leadership challenge, as you mentioned. I don't know that CEOs are going to have the time or bandwidth to focus this deep into their organizations, but their operations leadership absolutely should be doing this as a high priority.
There's no question about it. And I'll tell you how hard it really is. I don't care the size of the company. This is immensely time consuming. And it is also mentally draining. One of the things that's interesting, reasoning engines, which are the current iteration of large language models that we're using, right? They're using chain of thought. They're using mixture of experts. They've become reasoning engines because it's economically better for the hyperscalers and the foundational model builders. are pattern matching tools. They are, if they haven't seen the pattern, they can't do anything. So they're not originating any thought. They vaguely understand the internet. They have certain things completely memorized from the internet that they've read. But importantly, they've read everything on the public web. So if the pattern exists, and especially if there's a lot of patterns that are similar, they're really good. So this is what's interesting. When you give it something and expect something new out of it, when you give it a problem, expect something new, you're always going to be disappointed. But if you give it a problem that is well understood, well written about, well annotated on the public web, and you constrain the answers, you actually get some interesting responses. And here's what I mean. So a lot of people use Salesforce. It's very popular, and HubSpot also. And anybody who's ever been a salesperson will tell you that it's exhausting. It's so much meta work. You take a meeting, you get back, you got to put the date in, you got to say who it was with, you got to, oh yeah, I talked to Rob, and his kid's doing this and his mom's doing that, and you want to have it for next time, and you got to do all that stuff. So now we have note-taking apps, some that are stealthful, like Granola, which will just, without letting you know, it's taking notes, which is fun for some and completely immoral for others. And then you've got some that no, but I mean, look, there's plenty of it out there, right? Then, if you're on Zoom or if you're on Teams, you can turn on the note taking or
I love it on Zoom. It works quite well.
Well, yeah, because obviously everybody's in a separate window. It really understands who's speaking, their titles and their email addresses. So there's all. The point is, you can get a transcript of pretty much everything you do now. And you could always do that, but there wasn't anything you could do with it.
Right.
So now pretend for a second that you are someone who's been trained for decades to use Salesforce. And it's meta work and you hate it, but you use it and your boss is looking to pull reports out of it. And that's how they do pipeline and like all the things that Salesforce does. I'm not ragging on Salesforce. I'm just talking about a process. All of a sudden, I'm in a world where I've got a transcript of every conversation that I'm in. And it's, to your point, broken up by who I was talking to. Like it really knows. It's not guessing who's talking. It knows who's talking. I'm on Zoom or Teams. I can pull action items out of that, the thank you note out of that, and I can create a knowledge base out of that that is really interesting. So if I build a large language model tool set and all it does is look at the day's transcripts, put them in the right client folders, put them into a daily brief, give me my action items for today, tomorrow, and sometime in the future. Throw that in the to-do list. Write my thank you notes and put them in my drafts folder. Like,
ping you for follow up. A week or two later. Like, yes,
the tickler
that would be an amazing efficiency.
Fallback, the whole thing. This is what Salesforce is for, but it's not what it does.
Now, you would
think they'd
be doing this to themselves, right? Like building the agentic
Einstein's
system.
supposed to do it, but it doesn't do it. And what I'm saying is that if you sat everyone in the sales department, and we do this all the time in our company, that's why I'm bringing this up, the revenue side is where real money can be made, right? I'm going to make my sales teams more productive. So how do I make them more productive? Well, let's get all the busy work out of there and let's get the sales research going. So can we take everything in the client folder? You're a sales guy. You're going out to sell some ads to, I don't know, Volvo or Ford or whoever. Can I have everything we've ever done for the tri-state Ford dealers in a knowledge base? I can. Can I have AI go look at it? Give me some, feedback on that. Give me some preliminary research of my own internal stuff. Then go out on the web, see what the tri-state Ford dealers have been doing for the last 6 months, and give me a pretty decent way to sit back and talk to my team about what we might do together. If you want to use that to give you the idea, you're missing the point. It can set you up for success. And then my favorite thing to do with the output when you're all done, you put it back in the LLM or the reasoning engine. You say, other than price, what's the client going to complain about? You're acting as my client. Argue with me about why you're not buying. I mean, these are the kinds of things that you could never do before. And the fact that people are turning around and going, well, this isn't valuable and blah, it's like, hold on a minute. If you think you're going to press a button and get an outcome, you're not. But if you are smart enough to go to first principles and then think about your business outcomes and you have the time to rebuild the workflow and process, to innovate on the workflow and process and have a new relationship with your data, brand new. You've never been able to talk to your data before. You throw it in Notebook LM. It's a free product. It's like put 50 PDFs in there and have a conversation with it. When did you talk to your data in your life? It's like you haven't. So what does that mean? You need to train yourself. And then the reasoning engine or the large language model or the tool, the wrapper that you put around that needs to understand it too. One of the things we do that's really fun, either Claude Code or Codex or Gemini 2.5 Pro, they all have command line interfaces. And pro tip, everybody gets the web versions or the app versions and the mobile versions, and they all run in a beautiful interface that look like a chat client. That's what everybody gets. Don't do that. That's for kids. That's really for amateurs. Open up the command line tool in Claude Code. It works 50 times better than a Claude app. It thinks about everything. You tell it, hey, set yourself up in GitHub. Tell it to set you up in GitHub and remember everything you talk to it about and set up a close down end of day little Python script that'll just take everything and put it in this knowledge base. It's the Tercek intelligence platform and everything you do all day is just gonna be laying there. And when it's safe because it's not putting it on the public web. It's all locally to your computer or local to your system as you set it up. And you have this amazing knowledge base that evolves over time. And every day you talk to it and say, hey, we need context profiles for the clients. We need context profiles for the various personas we're going to interface with you as. And as you start to really understand how these tools, what they're capable of, and more importantly, what they're not capable of, what they will not do. No matter how hard you try, the science only goes so far today.
Okay.
And if you understand
Why
that,
you're not a product right now. It seems to me that what you just described, that sort of, intelligent personal assistant that tracks everything that you're doing and summarizes it and organizes it for you.
Keeps it where you are and keeps it on your own hardware,
Yes.
as opposed to sending it out
if Salesforce isn't going to provide that, which you kind of think they should, but if they're not going to do
Einstein's
that.
supposed to do that, but I've not seen one install of Einstein that.
So is Anthropic going to do that with Claude, or is Perplexity going to do that?
OpenAI does it now. If you buy the commercial version, like you can get the enterprise versions of any of these and sit down and get it done. Google can get it done with Gemini. OpenAI can get it done. You have to really commit. And the thing we were talking about is how much time it takes. I mean, you really have
Set
to
it up.
commit. Well, in your head, it's the mental gymnastics. Because no one's doing it this way. We do these visioning sessions that are really interesting. I'll put Tercek and company in a room and I'll say, okay, we're going to innovate the workflow and process. We're inventing the future. The only things that are off limits are faster than light travel and Mr. Scott's transporter. Can't transport you because it takes all the energy in the known universe. And I can't, you can't travel faster than light. Albert Einstein says so. And other than that, you can have whatever you want. Let's vision the future. The first 2 iterations of every process that's being iterated, the person who's mainly in charge of it keeps themselves in the middle of it. So then I say, well, hey, Rob, could you imagine this process without you? Like without you being in it? And you kind of go, I guess I could. So, no. Why are you in the middle of a process that is agentic in its nature? If you want to super automate to an outcome from first principles, we want to grow the business. The strategy is if these 3 things were true, we would grow the business 5%. Whatever those 3 things are. Let's automate 2 of those 3 things and see if we can get how close can we get? You're starting at first principles and you're looking only at an outcome, and then you're applying the tech after the fact. But everybody puts themselves in the middle of that as if like the human part has to be there.
It's solipsism, but it's really hard to take ourselves out of the equation, right? It's hard to imagine yourself not there.
Exactly. And so this is, and by the way, when this evolves and people get more comfortable with it, and they may not, and I'll tell you why they may not. I've written an article. I thought I invented the phrase. I seriously did not invent the phrase. I thought it up, but so did 50 million other people well before me. It's called identity threat. And this is when, you're going to love this. You're an extraordinary painter. By the way, anybody listening who hasn't seen a Rob Tercek painting does not understand what a talented artist Rob Tercek is. This guy is gifted. And seriously gifted.
Flattery works. Thank you.
Oh, no. The stuff you post on Facebook just makes me smile every time. Like I want my own piece of Rob Tercek art.
Yeah, that can happen.
So if one day you went to one of the diffusion or transformer diffusion models and you described something and it painted something in your style that you recognized as better than you could do, you would feel something click inside that I have noticed over the last 6 to 8 months with my very, very talented clients. It's sort of like when musicians sit in a jam session and within the first three measures, you kind of know who the best player in the group is. And it's unspoken, but it's clear. Oh man, she is killer. Like I don't have those chops. So when you realize, and you have to be great to recognize greatness. I hate to say it, and you have to have really woodshed to know what it is to be able to have that level of technique. When you read something it writes and you go, wow, okay, I've only read what I've read. It's read the whole internet. It just pattern matched something I couldn't have done.
Yeah.
People get whacked out about it and they won't say it out loud. That's the bigger problem here. Like people are experiencing this and it is a negative emotion they can't show. But when you carve them away from the pack and open up a bottle of brown whiskey, you'll hear the whole story.
It's like being confronted with mortality. You're being confronted with your own obsolescence. And that's the challenge we have to address. Like you have to deal with that before you can figure out what your path to survival is. By the way, right. I've been using AI for painting for the past like 18 months or so, but the last year has been really quite tremendous because it's exactly what you say. It's better than me at sketching. Like there's no question about it. So, I can generate 1,600 sketches with AI, with Midjourney, in the time that it would have taken me to do 5 by hand. Right. And they're all better. Like, not all of them are going to be useful, but of 1,600, I'm going to find 5 good ones in that group. All right, let's take a little break, and then after that, we'll come right back. Folks, you're listening to The Futurists, and my guest this week is Shelly Palmer. Stay tight, hang tight. We'll be right back in just a minute. Hey there, welcome back to The Futurist. Rob Tercek here, and this week I'm talking to Shelly Palmer about the agentic web, whatever that means. We developed our own kind of ad hoc definition at the start of the show. And what Shelly was just telling us about before the break is he gave us kind of a generic overview of like how one might go about agentifying your own workflow. That's super interesting, but now I want to get a little more specific, and I'm driving to a specific outcome on this show. Because there's one particular industry that I think is about to get shaken up in a massive way very soon, in the next 10 months. So let's start with the idea of agentic browsers, because I think that's a place where the average person can get the experience of working with an agent right now today. And to a certain extent, when you use Chrome, you're getting an agentic experience because now, for the past year, Gemini has been summarizing the search results, and some of that is quite useful. Actually, I find it sometimes very useful. But that has an impact on publishers because it means if you got the answer, you didn't need to click through and they didn't get the ad exposures. And so you can see that already starts to upset the delicate balance of the publishing ecosystem. But now we have agentic browsers. So tell me a little bit about Comet, Atlas, and the new announcement from Google.
So Perplexity has had Comet, their agentic browser, for a while. And to be fair, only the geeks cared because they're not very well distributed. But a couple of weeks ago, OpenAI introduced Atlas to their pro users. Atlas is basically Chromium, which is Chrome, an open source version of Chrome with GPT-5 sort of glued into it. What's interesting about it is that you can ask it to... It has your GPT-5 system all sort of built in. But that's not the unique part. It has agency. So you can say, for example, I want to cook chicken enchiladas for 10 people tonight. And I want the best Tex-Mex recipe that you could possibly find for me. And that's going to give you your answer engine that you just described, right? Because it's a zero-click situation. They may cite some sources, but you're not going to a website. You're being taken in Atlas the same way you would be in Chrome with AI mode or AI overviews. You're just being given a great recipe. And then now with Atlas, you can say, use Instacart to go to Fairway and buy me the produce and the protein. I have most of the ingredients. And it will open up Instacart. It will start looking for your produce and your protein. Now, This is fascinating. It's looking like RPA, like robotic process automation. It's basically just running around. You have an opportunity to take control at any time or stop it. But if you don't, it's just, you're going to watch the cursor just run around the web interface as it goes and finds stuff for you. And it basically fills up your shopping cart. You can interrupt it at any time and say, oh, you know what? I don't have my spices either. And it'll go look for chili powder. It'll go look for cumin. Now, the question you got to ask yourself is all about that data. Instacart gets the data because Instacart gets data. Fairway Market gets shopping cart data because they do. But and they might be able to infer what you're doing. Although, let's face it, in this use case, I'm shopping for one meal. You don't generally shop for one meal. You generally shop for a whole week's worth of food or a few days worth of food. OpenAI, on the other hand, in Atlas, knows what I'm doing. They know I'm having a dinner party. They know when it is. They know what I'm getting. Now, where did they put up their toll booths? Did they have a toll booth in the non-branded produce section when I went to get the yellow onion or the cilantro? Was there key money paid? Was there co-op money paid? Retail media money paid? When someone picked the McCormick cumin over the store's owned, over Ball and Basket? Was it based on inventory levels from Fairway? Look, you and I have no visibility into this. There are 96 new value chains that no one is telling us where any of that's going. But you know who wins? In this scenario, OpenAI gets all the data. Plus, when the Instacart shopping cart is done and it's ready for checkout, it's copied directly into the chat window. They have that too. So while GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and they don't learn anything from what you do, the agents have memory. They need to have memory to function.
Yes.
So OpenAI now has every bit of information the way that Google does. So we have two companies now that will know more about us than any other. Google, which just the other day, late to the party, but going to be a formidable player. Remember, Chrome is Gemini powered since the lawsuit. They won the lawsuit with the DOJ. They got to keep Chrome. And now they've added agentic capability to AI mode, so directly in competition with Atlas and Comet. So we now see what the primitive proto-agentic consumer experience will look like. It can never look like this in the future. This is just the beginning, because you're not going to want to watch the cursor run around. It's going to be done at some API level and just get it done for you. But right now, it's literally RPA, robotic process automation. You're watching the cursor go all over the screen and do your bidding. What's amazing for business, though, for the media business, for the publishing business, for the e-commerce business, is the data streams and the toll booths. Like, we are in a new world. And if you don't leave the casino with AppKit from OpenAI, if you don't leave the casino because of A2A and MCP, we have a whole new e-commerce environment that you can literally see emerging in front of your eyes. This is like 1998, 1999, relived in the new world order. It doesn't do anything like you want it to do yet. Like, I had to try to go buy tickets for Universal Studios, but it bought the food really well. It got me tickets to the Rangers game perfectly. Like, there's some stuff it knows how to do.
That's impressive. So you've actually relinquished the credit card control to the agent. You've actually done this. You're the first person.
I've done everything, when you say, we have to be careful here. The relinquish of the credit card, Instacart had my credit card, SeatGuru, SeatGeek, Ticketmaster, they have my credit cards. Because this is agentic and not yet a workflow that OpenAI is charging for, at least not the way I understand charging, meaning they didn't take my credit card. The checkout for the Rangers game was on SeatGuru. The checkout for the Chinese enchilada dinner was an Instacart. So Instacart had my credit card, not OpenAI. No, I didn't let it click buy. I went over the shopping cart, and it actually wouldn't click, and it didn't. It had stopped, and all it does is it puts the checkout, button up, and
This is my observation at this stage, like this month, right now in 2025. People aren't allowing the agent to actually do the transaction. So there's still like some human checkpoint of control, but that's going to go soon, like months, right? Not years.
Well, what I was saying before, an agent is a thing that does a thing. An agentic system is a group of agents that accomplishes a goal. Here, they've built a group of agents accomplishing a goal. When you are satisfied that it is going to accomplish the goal aligned with your outcomes, aligned with your vision and your mission and your values and your outcomes, at a certain point, if it goes shopping for me and picks up my, and it understands something about what I'm doing this week. And so rather than my standing order at Instacart and my standing order at Amazon and my subscription, stuff like the paper towels and the cleaning stuff, which are all kind of dumb agents, if you will, they're macros that are subscriptions. If it does that well, I can imagine myself letting that go. It's low stakes, right?
It might save you some time. I mean, it could be eventually you just talk to your computer and say, oh, by the way, book a table for 2 at Botanica tonight, and it'll do that, and you won't have to even intervene or check. It'll just show up in your calendar.
By the way, it does that on OpenTable extremely well right now. It does let you click, but I mean, it does that extremely well. That's one of the things that OpenAI
Okay, I'll have to check that one out. So, Shelly, you said something a moment ago. I want to come back and underscore it because you're sharing a lot of interesting nuggets, and I want to make sure we don't miss some of the good ones. You mentioned that these services are being provided free today by OpenAI, and actually, OpenAI has introduced a lot of new products that they're not charging you end users for. Sora 2 is another example, the Sora app, which is very popular right now on mobile phones to generate short videos. They're not charging for these, yet the cost of compute is enormous, right? So we know that every time you order $25 of groceries on Instacart using an agent, you're probably using as much electricity and compute power as a small village. But OpenAI is eating the cost of that. Why? Because they're getting the data. And effectively, you can think all the users, all the millions and millions of people who are using these tools, whether it's their browser or whether it's the Sora app, they're training they're training the AI, and they're actually teaching it a nuanced understanding of how humans want to communicate and the kinds of objectives and goals humans have. That's valuable. That's more valuable than collecting money right now, apparently, right? That seems to be the motivation for offering these services free. Okay, so let's shift to one other related topic because you wrote about this and I was interested in it. So let's talk about Comet versus Amazon. And to me, this is the agentic web versus Web 2.0. And it's kind of ironic that it's Amazon who's done so much to upset and destroy and reshape and kind of change the retail ecosystem. They're the ones who are on the defensive. They sued Perplexity for the Comet browser. And Perplexity's response is really simple. Perplexity doesn't use Amazon. Perplexity's users are visiting Amazon, and Perplexity's users choose to use the Perplexity browser. So this is really a struggle for control over the user that's at stake here. Now, when you're in Amazon's world, you are very much subject to their control. People don't tend to think about it, but if you buy into Prime, and a lot of do, 100 million people in the United States do, then you're being conditioned to shop at Amazon as your first and only visit on the web. And of course, agentic shopping is going to free us from that grip. Of course, once you're inside Amazon's domain, there's all sorts of dark patterns that they can employ, and they have total knowledge of your history of shopping. They know your preferences. They know a great deal about you. Again, we don't tend to keep that in our current memory. We tend to, people get amnesia instantly when they're on the web, but the systems understand that. And I think what might happen here is that the agents might wrest control away from the big retailers like Amazon and put control back in the hands of the end user. You might want to find out about offers that are outside of Amazon's marketplace.
This is what's interesting. Yes, you're right. No, you're wrong. Yes, you're right in that if I am, my dad owned 5 in little music stores. They were, the 25 by 50 foot, strip mall sized local music stores around Long Island and New York City in the tri-state area. And he was able to as he expanded his business, he was able to buy better, and he was able to get a higher margin on all the goods and services and guitars and band instruments because he could buy more stuff. He didn't really have specialty items the way that some retailers do, unique items now. When you're looking at an Amazon, everything you said is 100% true, and I really deeply want to believe that every Shopify website that has ACP, Agentic Commerce Protocol, enabled, which is going to show up when your product shows up organically in a chat, when you get share of prompt and share of mind on the app, there can be a buy button where they buy directly and OpenAI takes a little affiliate fee. And I want to believe in my heart that that is going to be this amazing renaissance, this resurgence of local small retailers. Etsy, same thing, has the same deal going. The 2 tests with OpenAI's ACP. And I really, really, really want to believe that. But you know what I know in my heart? Amazon, because my brother works sells his goods in an Amazon store. They are draconian, and they are customer centric in a way that no small retailer can be. And the return policies are insane. And the margins that they crush, and it's a soul crushing experience, great for consumers and terrible for merchants. And because of that, consumers love it. And on the first day, you're not able to return, or the shipping isn't free, or there's no way in the world a small retailer is going to compete with an Amazon on the things that make Amazon Amazon. But I so desperately, Rob, want to believe that Amazon is scared of this, and they're sitting back going, "Oh wow, if you're not searching on Amazon for what you want first, then and some agent runs around and checks Walmart.com, which is a real competitor, checks Target.com, which is less but also a formidable competitor, goes and checks Wayfair. Like, they don't want you to do that. So if the agent's going to go search like entities." What I wanted it to do was I wanted it to bring back mom and pop cottage industries, like small REITs, like all. It's just going to basically empower consumers to make all the big e-commerce players have to be better, which can only be good for us. And that's why I'm.
Oh, okay. So it's great for consumers, but it's not so great for small businesses. Should we conclude that small businesses are going to be doomed, or should we conclude that there's an opportunity for small business that hasn't been defined yet, but there's a way for them to differentiate their offering in this space? After all, shopping isn't just about obtaining products.
I think we have to redefine what it means to be a small business. I have many friends who and a lot of colleagues whose side hustles include doing stuff like painting beautiful pictures or making custom things for like themed party events, or some people have crickets and some people have laser cutters and make signs and stuff, and they do a robust business on Etsy, pick up an extra $50,000, $60,000 a year. To some people, that's not money. To other people, that's life-changing. It's like the so you have to redefine what it is to be a small business. A storefront that has inventory, that has permits from the city, that that needs an immense amount of insurance, that has light, heat, and electric, and it's like those businesses. They're harder and harder and harder to maintain, and big staff. But what does it mean to be a small business? Is once you define that, I think we can see this shift, the side hustles becoming the creator economy, mixing with the ability to produce goods and services. I see that as a being very well enhanced by this, because the agentic tools level the playing field. If you've got really, really good content about what you do, and it's well written and well positioned, you're going to show up. You get you'll learn how to get share a prompt, and that's
it seems to me that you're saying makes a good deal of sense, and this is also true for established businesses. You kind of have to unbuild your business and rebuild it with agentic AI in mind. In order to bake those things in, to build new processes where those are at the center, they're not at the periphery. Okay, but tell me a little bit about the Comet, the Perplexity Comet versus Amazon conflict. What was the nature of the conflict there? Because I seem to have gotten it wrong.
No, look, the nature of the conflict is really simple. You said it right. Amazon said don't use, your robot to go search to buy stuff on Amazon. They don't want exactly as you described it. That is the lawsuit. And look, at the end of the day, it's hard for us to understand how this ends, because what does it mean to search the web has been, no one's ever searched the web. You use a browser.
It's true. We delegate that.
Browser is a computer program, and the machine searches the web.
Yeah.
So all web searches are by bot. No matter, like, you may be controlling the bot, but all web searchers are software. When you do headless Chrome, it's really hard for the universe to figure out, if you are very good at your job, that there's not a person behind it, which is how come half the internet traffic is bots. Some are benign bots, but the malicious bots, if you're a bad actor, it is not hard to make your stuff look like a person is searching, because people don't search. Browsers search.
Right. Okay,
It's
and that
kind of
gave rise to
going to
two
get weird.
significant industries. It gave rise to search optimization and also to the CX business. And CX is, I think, what's at the core of this conflict between Perplexity and Amazon. Amazon maintains that they haven't optimized their consumer experience for the Amazon customer, and they probably do devote an awful lot into UI experiments
They
and
do.
testing to make sure that it's, that they get the optimal experience to consumers. But what the Perplexity browser says to me is people want to wrest control of that CX. They want to have their own personalized experience, and they're going to trust an agent to do that more than a retailer.
I
That
don't
means
know.
there's a
I
struggle.
think, but I mean, Rob, it's such early days and so few people have access to these tools right now. It's hard to speculate. And also the tools are primitive. And so what they do is they give us a way to think about the future. I honestly think the value here, and I think for everybody, the intellectual framework is not, oh, this is how things are going to be. It's like, whoa, hold on a minute. What's the end state? So the end state is I get a notification, and the notification says something like, "I got shave cream and razors, and there'll be Instacart's coming with chicken. Make sure somebody's home to put it in the fridge." Like, who gets the notification? You, your significant other, someone like that's the end state, and at some point Elon Musk would have you believe that a Optimus robot, greets him at the door and puts the chicken in the fridge. So if that's the goal, what do we need to do to get there? And by the way, think about all of the various value chains and all the various new business rules that not need to show up. And you made a very important point. The data that we've given Facebook and Google and Amazon and Netflix, the data elite, what we've given them freely is a joke compared to what we're giving to OpenAI
Yeah,
and what we will give to Google. Because
yeah,
now this is
yeah,
the loneliness epidemic, the conversation,
yeah.
Rob, this is next level nonsense. So for us to sit back and say we understand the future of commerce, you said also, and I think very important, shopping is a sociology as much as it is an outcome. My wife goes shopping with her friends on a
Yeah,
Saturday. They may not buy
so
anything.
true.
They're just going to go goof
It's
around,
also
right?
kind of entertainment experience for people as
That's
well.
my point. So we have to define purchasing. I need to buy is different from I'm going shopping, right?
Yeah.
So we may have agentic buying long before we have agentic shopping.
Well, one place where agentic buying is happening now is in a related field. So, for those who are listening, let's not forget that the discussion so far has been about shopping, which pertains to marketing and customer acquisition, and retailers across the board, whether they're online or offline, have to deal with those issues. The way they do that is by buying media. And so, the related field I want to turn our attention to now, because this is being reconfigured right now, is advertising. And advertising has been a nonstop state of total revision since Google bought DoubleClick in 2007 and closed the deal in 2008. And a massive shift in power because in the old days, newspapers, sold ads. That was their business. Magazines sold ads. TV networks sold ads. And there's still some remnants of that. But by this point, most of it's been automated in these enormous buy side and sell side exchanges. So, the programmatic advertising or programmatic media buying is almost fully automated now. And that is about to get absorbed into something new, which is ad context protocol. So we talked a little bit about the agent
Agentic
protocol for
commerce.
shopping, but there's also an agent protocol for ad buying, and every agency in the world right now is working on this. So give me a little perspective on ad CP, ad context protocol.
Yeah, so AdCP is relatively new. There's a consortium, and there's a Git repo with it's open source.
And it's a
Yahoo's
pretty broad consortium, right? The group of people in it.
Yahoo, Pubmatic's in it, Optimal's in it, Scope 3 Swivel, Triton, Cargo. There's a bunch of people in it, and they're all basically trying. It sits on top of an MCP, basically. AdCP is sort of like MCP, the Model Context Protocol, that is a standardized API. And this basically is a standardized API for ad buying.
Yeah.
So if in a world of DSPs and SSPs, right, in a world of open web bid and ask sales, programmatic, this should augment that and should allow you to set your criteria up and say, go find me an audience, go find me audience signals of premium sports enthusiasts. And this thing is going to go out and find you that audience and buy that audience, and they'll buy it, theoretically, they're going to buy it programmatically. This could be a whole new set of black boxes. I hope it isn't. That's the danger. But there's going to be, there are different agents they've set up, right? They've got a signals agent, they've got a inventory agent, they've got a creative agent. So you can sort of use each of these individual agents to do certain parts of your pre-buy research, post-buy auditing, and of course the transaction itself can be activated. We'll see how this goes. I think this is...
It's quite early, but I guess the point there is they've already got a standard, which is
everybody wants it.
And
well, here's what's up.
Sounds like everyone's bought in. Agencies and the media buyers are in. We haven't seen it from the DSPs yet, have we? I don't know if it's integrated with the DSP.
Here's what's up. Every client, every year for the last 45 years has said two things. One, I want to stop paying Nielsen.
Oh.
That's nonsense because no one ever does. And then they all say, I want to fire my ad agencies and take it all in-house. Mm-hmm. And no one ever does. Now, the fantasy at night for every client, for every brand, is that they could plan and buy the media more efficiently themselves if they just had all the data they needed. What AdCP potentially can do is give anybody the ability to get the audience signals they need, craft a plan, get their taxonomy together, and actually go ahead and make their buy. We'll see. If it goes that way, it will first augment the programmatic ecosystem as we understand it right now. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, it is, you read the spec and you look at what it can do, and you just have this much understanding of how advertising is bought and sold in the universe. The future of this thing, if it's successful, and it's only successful if people start to use it and real money starts to, flow through the system. But if that gets done, Rob, you're going to have agents going out there figuring out. By the way, Mark Zuckerberg said something a few months ago, got him in a lot of trouble. He said, give me your credit card and tell me how much money you want to earn. Now, Facebook's only 15%, Meta is only 15% of your ad buy if you're a normal customer of ours. If you're,
that's his message to advertisers.
Yeah, but by the way, he's right. There is no data set you have about Meta that's better than Meta's data set.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
There is nothing.
But that speaks to a reliance on a near monopoly in social.
But it's only 15% of your buy. But if you wanted to maximize Meta in the context of Meta, forgetting about your media, we could argue about media mix modeling and optimization, forgetting all that for a second, for the 15% of my dollars that I spend on Meta with them, if I want it purely optimized, I can't do a better job.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Also, why bother? You've got other things to figure out. So why spend the time?
He took a lot of heat for that. But Google's another 25% of my buy, and then maybe 50% is everything else. Google might be 35% of my buy. Mm-hmm. Amazon's and the retail media networks are another 20% now. So it's like you start thinking about could we have agentic tools from Google? Yes. From Facebook or Meta? Yes. From an AdCP system that handles the open web for me? Yes. And then a couple retail media networks throw in. All of a sudden, I've got an agentic world that, what does a media planner and buyer do at that point? What are the agencies like?
This is exactly what I've been thinking. It's actually why I reached out to you. It looks like the end of the road for that profession. Or they're going to supervise a galaxy of agents. I suppose they'll have a job of managing it. Shelly, one last piece here of the media pie. So all of the advertising we're talking about is there in some part to support media. That's how they gather an audience, right? So the publishing business model is you get an audience and you resell those eyeballs to an advertiser, and then the ads are dynamically inserted through one of the systems we just referred to. Now, is there anyone working on an agent for content. I'm thinking now of like John Hagel's books in the 1990s where he talked about info intermediaries, some smart assistant that would go fetch content for you so that you didn't have to even bother browsing or searching. It knew what you were interested in. It would go find it. To me, this seems doable. However, all the
Like
content
this.
now is firewalled off. It's all behind either a paywall
Oh,
or it's
no, no,
inside of
no,
some
no, no.
subscription service.
No, 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 no. Rob, this is such an important, non-trivial, crazily important point. Distribution is God. God is distribution. It's that simple. And 36 months from now, code and content are going to be vastly different economically than they are now. I would argue code and content are going to basically be free. There is for those of you who have OpenAI Pro, ChatGPT Pro, there is a thing called a GPT Pulse, Pulse, like take in your pulse. And every morning it gives you art cards about your life, proactively tells you what it is you're going to be doing today, gives you the news you want in the context of your own actions inside of OpenAI's environment. And if you have opened yourself up, turned memory on and opened yourself up so that it can understand your day, the art cards are absolutely spectacular. And it's so obvious what the future is going to be. And I don't know how publishers have a role in that world. You won't be able to see this maybe well, but this is Pulse. And every one of these art cards is completely about me. And it's all of the news and the things I'm talking about.
Oh, so it's
Rob,
already doing that kind of curation for you.
it knows that I'm going to be on your podcast. It says ways to prep for Rob Tercek.
Oh, wow. That's
And
crazy.
it's given me an entire protocol for how I'm supposed to prep for this conversation today because it knows you're on my calendar. And it knows we know each other and you are in our knowledge base and it has access to our local knowledge base. So we're there. And what does it mean to be a publisher now? If you
I
think
don't know.
about
That's what I'm interested. Like the idea of a destination news site, that's over. The traffic's diminishing to those, right? A news aggregator. Well, this thing replaces that. What about a subscription service like Netflix? Why do I even need a subscription channel? What is a TV channel in this context? So the content's going to get atomized down to the article or the episode, right? That's certainly one outcome here.
Well, yeah, look, there's a couple things that we're really in trouble about, and I don't know how to solve for them. First, I would like authenticated facts in my local news and in my national news. I do not like commentary. I don't like punditry. I'd like to understand what happened. And right now, Bloomberg is like how I get that.
Mm-hmm.
The AP once in a while is because of what they are and how they work. And then I have a few specialty ones that I support wholeheartedly, Financial Times and a few others. But where do I get who's going to pay for? Because I must pay for. I need a journalist a reporter to stand there and write the story down in a way that I want to read it. There isn't room for 100 of these, but there's room for a couple. So the best will survive. The way, and the problem is, and you know this as well as I do, and I'm stating the obvious too, and I apologize for doing this on your own show because this is, so well. The only way to win is to take the most nuanced subject possible, bifurcate it, make it black and white, and take the negative side or the extreme side. And that's what our world has devolved into, and that's what journalism has devolved into. And while there are still nuggets and places where, who, what, when, where, and why and how are important, and there are still places where there's journalistic integrity and there's critical viewing and critical listening, man, they're few and further between. I don't know how we pay for them. And Rob, we need to find a way to pay for the journalism that we need. Then I don't mind how it's distributed, however it's distributed, but there's got to be a way to pay the professional journalist to journal.
You're right. Because, we hear complaints about AI slop, and that's a legitimate complaint. There is a lot of AI generated content, but we should also note that there's also a lot of propaganda slop, and that is funded by somebody who doesn't have our best interest in mind. And they're certainly not there to support traditional journalism, fact checking, anything or anything that's grounded in reality. They're pushing an ideology, and there's a flood of that content from all sides of the political spectrum. It's very difficult for individual people, though, because you read something that's quite compelling. It might be shared by somebody that you trust, and now you have to do the work to fact check it, and you probably have to check 20 sources before you kind of can come to a conclusion about whether it's accurate or not.
I have
That's a
to,
ton of work.
I have to, before we go, I want to bring one thing up that actually keeps me up at night. And it's on this subject, and it's an adjunct to it. When you see how people are using reasoning engines and large language models now, and the way they are interacting with ChatGPT and Character AI and Claude, where they are using them as companions. You've got teenagers that won't get dressed in the morning without consulting chat. There are young people who won't go on a date without having a conversation about the relationship with chat, which is how they refer to ChatGPT and all of the proprietary research we've done for our clients recently. And ChatGPT is the Kleenex of this brand, of the AI world, right? You may use Claude, but you're going to say ChatGPT. You may use Gemini, but you're going to say ChatGPT. That's the brand name. The problem is that the algorithms are set up with reward structures that make social media look like it doesn't have an algorithm that's reward structured. This thing practices sycophancy at a level you literally need to tell it not to be a sycophant. And your inner narcissist will be so tickled by this stuff.
That's an brilliant observation, Shelly.
Can you imagine, I personally would say, and Facebook, Meta, Google are great clients of mine, and please don't stop being clients. We love working with you guys. But social media is the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity, flat out. And I'd say that in front of Mark Zuckerberg if he was standing here. For all the good it's done a lot more bad. But chat clients where you cocoon yourself in more than an echo chamber, more than confirmation bias, this next level.
Solipsistic bubble where you're the genius, you're the brilliant person. Actually, there is a growing kind of open AI neurosis or ChatGPT neurosis that's emerging. This isn't documented. There are a number of cases of it. It's people who don't get validation in real life from their real relationships, if they have any. So they're getting validation from a machine that's optimized to flatter them. It's
so you tell me, when it gives you news that's completely structured for your confirmation bias, that's completely structured for your inner narcissist, that is 100% structured for you. You tell me what a publisher's role is in that world, because that to me is what's about to happen.
So people will be subscribing to the Tucker
that.
Carlson bot or to the Rachel Maddow bot, and it'll give them that curated view of the world, which may or may not correspond to objective reality, but it will be a very flattering view for people who have those opinions. Okay, Shelly, give me a view, for instance, let's say 2030, 5 years from now. What's the media ecosystem going to look like? Will we still have Netflix and streaming services? Will we have newspapers like the New York Times? Will bloggers and podcasters have a future, or are they going to find their role in this space?
I think storytellers are going to struggle with blockbuster budgets. I think we're going to see less and less blockbusters. And if we see more of them, they'll be bigger blockbusters than we've seen in the past, because they'll need to be bigger. The big will get much bigger. I think what you and I understand as the media business is going to give way to, I think YouTube wins with AI, with Sora and VO. I think everybody who wants to emote and create, and this ability to vibe create, to vibe code, to vibe storytell, where English is the new programming language, I think the impact of this is going to be substantial. And what I'm interested in understanding is, you take a show like The Morning Show on Apple, which is lovely. It's a delightful show, well written, fun to watch. My wife and I can watch it together. The Diplomats, another show that we watched on Netflix that my wife and I could watch together, and we would sit and grab some popcorn and I think we binge watched a couple episodes, and then we got into it. Those are expensive.
Yeah.
And they're fewer and farther between now than they have been. During the pandemic, there were lots of them. Now there's a few of them. And so I know what they are. I can name them for you. I can't name the shows I watched during the pandemic. The amount of TikTok, the amount of YouTube that people are watching, and the ability to generate that kind of content. There will be people, I don't know who they are, I don't know what their talents are, but I do know what they're capable of. They're capable of thinking up something at the speed of TikTok and getting it out there. And there are people who are going to want to watch it. And we only have so many hours a day in our lives to be entertained, enlightened, and informed. And when you quintuple the amount of content that's out there that I'm willing to watch, high budget publishers are going to have to work extra hard, and high budget storytellers are going to have to work extra hard to make the money they need to make and to get my attention. So attention is a finite resource. It's scarce. I only have 24 hours a day. And everybody does. So, and it's now, and everybody is in an attention deficit. These tools just make that worse. And so we can talk all about quality and quantity. And I'm going to be I was the first guy to say it when I saw it the first time, and I will repeat it now. A cat on a toilet seat on YouTube is content to somebody, and it's quality content to somebody. And do not tell me it's not quality content, because if it takes up their attention, I can't buy and sell that attention in my media business, which is what I do for a living. That eyeball is taken away from me. I can't buy it or sell it. So there's no economics behind that. I don't care if it's good or bad, if it's just an oddity, if it's just a fender bender on the street that I go by that makes me slow down, if it takes it out of my value chain as a media business person, nothing good happens on the other side of that. So Google wins, and TikTok wins, and Meta wins. That's the new big three. It's ABC, NBC, and CBS. It's Meta, Google. Like, you want to throw Netflix in there?
Well, and they extended so many other domains of our existence beyond just entertainment and media. Well, gosh, Shelly, I could go on all day with you. We didn't even get to the security issues, which are legion and need to be addressed. The time is our enemy here. We have too much to talk about.
Large.
I always enjoy it tremendously. Hey, for the benefit of our audience, tell us where people can find out more about you. I get a great deal of benefit from reading your blog, so tell us about that and where you're present on social media.
So we have a free email newsletter you get every day. I do a rant Mondays through Fridays.
And they're mercifully short. I read them every day. They're mercifully short. 3 paragraphs, brevity. 4 max.
Brevity, the soul of wit. And then Saturdays is a synopsis in case you're too lazy to read the whole week, each day. And then on Sundays, I write a thought leadership piece, usually 800 to 1,300 words about whatever it is that's happening that I think is important. So you can get all of that at Shelly Palmer, SHELLYPALMER.com. It's free. Everything there is free. We have a consulting practice. If you're interested in subject matter expertise or training or AI leadership training or prompt crafting training or systems analysis, and we're helping create cultures of continuous adaptability where we used to be in the change management or digital transformation business. We've now realized that is wrong because those are finite things with finite budgets. Now it's just continuously adapting to the change. And we have a lot of different workflows and processes that help.
People can get a glimpse of that work. If you're interested in Shelly's work and want to go deeper, you've got a free course for executives about generative AI. Let's not forget that. You'll find that on the shellypalmer.com site as well. But that's a really, really useful resource, I think. And it's a good way for people to get an experience of what it's like to be in one of your tutorials or workshops.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us, Shelly. It's always a great pleasure to catch up with you, and you always have your finger on the pulse of these complicated things that are evolving really quickly. Thank you for your enlightenment. For the folks who are listening, Shelly Palmer is a great guest. He's been on, I think, 4 times now, our show.
Wow.
Every week we'll have another guest who talks to us about the future as it's unfolding and the future that they're trying to influence or shape. So join us every week for another Futurist, and until then, I'll see you in the future.